More meetings, more meetings, more meetings, more meetings. So last week I had this opportunity to get in front of a sales organization that calls on other organizations. They're a wholesaler in the insurance business, and they work with brokers and consultants, and we were talking about a variety of different sales elements and how to be more successful and get more results. And from a corporate or an organizational standpoint, obviously they want bigger results. They want more activity. They want more deals closed, more appointments set, right? More meetings, more meetings, more meetings, more meetings. And we started to get into this conversation around, defining what minimum standards and expectations are. And where I pushed back with leadership, and where ultimately I think you need to be as an organization, is there is some bare, minimum floor of expectation that you need to put down. But the biggest mistake that an organization can have is trying to treat everybody exactly the same as it pertains to their success. Ultimately, what you have to do as a leader or as the CEO of a small business or anyone who's leading a sales organization is you got to get your people to define what it is they want to achieve and then reverse engineer a number for them in order to achieve those goals. Knowing your number is probably the preeminent, kind of rule number one for any salesperson. Because if you don't know what your number is, like in other words, if you don't know if I do X, Y happens, if you don't know what that is, then you're going to wander aimlessly and be incredibly frustrated every time you face rejection. And what we talked about through the course of that day was that you need to be as fair as possible by treating everybody different, removing the ambiguity, not just for the salesperson, but for the leader, right? If somebody says to me, I want to run an Olympic marathon, I'm going to coach that person very different than somebody who wants to run a 5K. And those two training regimens and the expectations and the work and the diet and all the things that have to go into it are incredibly different. And I think organizations, lose their way because they try to treat people uniformly. And instead, what they don't do is they get that, identify what that number is, break it down into meaningful bits, right? So in order to do this many demos, I need to have this many appointments set. In order to get this many appointments set, I need to run this many, prospecting calls. In order to get this many prospecting calls, I need to, have this many, emails, text messages. And we also talked about split testing, right? An A/B test. Test the script that you want to use. Test 4 different ways of saying the same thing 100 times, and monitor what's going to get you the results you want. And then you go backwards and you build out your calendar so that you can achieve the things you want to achieve. There's a tremendous amount of resistance in the sales community, in the leadership community to expectations and accountability. Nobody wants to report. Nobody wants to say that they want to say there's no correlation between activity and results, and it's nonsense. There's absolutely a correlation between the two. It's just different for every single person. And what people are really saying when they don't want to report is that they don't want to be held accountable. And ultimately, success is a combination of what you're willing to tolerate and, in terms of the expectations you put out there, what you're willing to tolerate in terms of the results and, of yourself and of others. And so, get people to understand what their number is, break down that goal into measurable pieces, and ultimately be as fair as possible by treating everybody differently. If you do that, you're gonna have a successful organization.